Andrew Krichkevich here again from the International Research Institute for Climate and Society, IRI, at Columbia University. And here we are again at the homepage of the IRI Climate and Society Map Room. So once again, the Map Room is a collection of interactive maps and interfaces, climate analysis tools that allows for visualizations and analysis of different climate variables. So today we'll be exploring how to assess rainfall of a previous season of interest. So another way to ask that question is, how did the rainy season perform in a previous season of interest? So for example, if it is December and you're interested in a rainy season that lasted from September, October, and November, we could do that here using the tools in the IRI Climate and Society Map Room. So again, here we are at the homepage. Want everyone to be comfortable with this as their landing page, their go-to source for climate analyses. And what we're going to do is click on the top left map room that's called Climate Analysis, Monitoring, and Forecasts. So there's many map rooms here that we could go to. These are for different processes. Some of these are tailored to certain questions and for certain organizations, but we're going to jump into this one in the top left called Climate Analysis, Monitoring, and Forecast. So let's click up there. And then we are, once again, we open up a new set of map rooms that allow us to analyze all different climate and environmental variables: atmospheric circulation, ocean temperature. There's some drought products here that we could look at. But we want to look at rainfall. We want to see how rainfall performed over the previous season. So we're going to head on down here to precipitation on the right side. The description of this map room is monthly to seasonal measures and analyses of precipitation. Yeah, that's what we want. So let's click on that. And now we opened up a new set of products. I know this may seem like a lot of products, but part of the reason why we're going through these map rooms is to get a better idea of which one of these products may be useful to answer the question that you're asking yourselves. We know there's a lot of data out there. We know there's a lot of products available. But how do we move from availability of rainfall products to using these data into making better decisions? So the default for the precipitation map room, as shown here, is the monthly products. So this is where we could do monthly analyses to get an idea of what happened over the previous month or of previous months of interest. Doesn't need to be the most recent month. It could be other months as well. But we can see that there's other time scales on the top left. We see tabs here. So we see monthly there. We see pentad. So pentad's interesting. This is if you want to look over 5-day periods, which may be interesting for you. But let's click on seasonal, because the question we're asking is, how did the rains perform over the previous rainy season? And for that, we see there's multiple tools here that could be useful for different questions in certain seasons for particular areas of the globe. We see standardized precipitation index, also known as SPI. We see the seasonal OLR anomaly, which stands for outgoing long-wave radiation anomaly. We see the WASP indices. We'll get into these products in future videos, but we want to look at the seasonal precipitation anomaly. So let's click on here. As the description says, this map will show us 3-month seasonal precipitation anomalies for the globe. So first, I want to be clear about what this is showing us. What is an anomaly? You may be asking yourself. Well, anomaly is just a scientific way for saying deviation from normal. So when we want to know how things differ from what we might normally expect over a certain period, if we want to know how rainfall is different from what we might usually expect, we'll calculate an anomaly. So again, just the deviation, the difference from normal. So the result of that calculation will allow us to see, were things above normal or were things below normal? Was rainfall at an area of interest on a global scale, as shown here in this map, was rainfall above average or below average? And the way that it is produced here on this map is in colors. So we see greens, and then we see kind of this brownish red signals, we call them, which are basically areas, patterns on a global scale. So in short, where we see greens, we see areas that saw above average rainfall for our period of interest. Where we see the brownish reds, we see those are indicative of areas that saw below average rainfall over a period of interest. So what period of interest? What is the period of interest? Well, if you look up top here, we see a time bar, and if we click here, we see that this map is showing us September to November 2017 seasonal precipitation anomalies. So what that means is that this map is showing us where we saw seasonal rainfall for over the September to November 2017 period, where we saw it above average or below average, the historical September to November totals for rainfall. So in other words, going back to 1979, we looked at September to November expected rainfall for all that historical period, and then we said, okay, compared to what we should expect from 1979, how did the most recent period compare? And that's what this map is showing. Now, it's kind of cool that we could see this across the whole globe, but we're interested in one area, Somalia. So let's zoom in to East Africa. So when we click in drag, we see a red box. And then when we let go, yeah, we'll see an automatic zoom in of our area. And we can see some interesting features here. We see some colors. We see some greens. We see some lightish reds. What do those mean? Well, first, we'll start with the greens over Kenya and Ethiopia. So we see different types of green. We see lighter green, and then we see slightly darker green. Well, the darker the green, the greater the deviation from normal. And since it's green, as green shows us where areas that had above average rainfall, this is saying that in the lighter green areas, we saw slightly above average rainfall over the September-November 2017 period. Where we saw the darker greens, we saw greater levels of above average rainfall. Might be a little bit confusing, but let's try to make sense of it when we look at the other colors. So over Somalia, we only see this in the northeast of Somalia. We see a very light, kind of oval shaped of brownish reds. This is showing an area where we see generally slightly below average rainfall for the September-November 2017 period. Just to compare it to other areas, if we look at northern Ethiopia here, in central Eritrea, we see a darker reddish brown. And this is saying that this area had greater deviations from normal for below average rainfall. So same that we see in the greens with increasing darkness of the color, it means greater deviations, or in this case above average rainfall levels. And same thing with the reddish browns. The darker the colors, the greater the deviation from normal. So just an analysis of what happened in Somalia over September-November 2017, we see things were pretty normal. And it's important to point out that when you don't see color, that means things were pretty much normal over our area of interest. Something else to point out when you're using this product or any product, it's good to know where the data is coming from. This data, if you look up here, I just highlighted it, it's coming from the CAMS OPI dataset from NOAA's Climate Prediction Center. Now, this might not be important, but it may be important when you start comparing different data sets to one another. So this isn't the only way to look at seasonal precipitation anomaly. There are other data sets you could use. That's why it is good to understand what data you are using, or at least just be aware of where it's coming from.